All right, good morning, everybody. This is the September 23rd, 2023 Generative Writing Workshop. I'm your host, Max Ritter. Just kidding. I'm a little slap happy today. But today we're going to move from Module 1 into Module 2 for both English 529 and English 532. In 529, you're focusing on the elements of plot and fiction, and then you're continuing to look at how they influence other elements. And that's a common theme all the way through 529, because of course, none of the elements of fiction can operate by themselves. You know, they all influence each other. So the elements of fiction are a great way to also then comment on each other's writing in this group. So we might as well briefly talk over what they are, because these are things you can try to listen for. When we write for our 6 minutes, if you're wanting to, you read back what you got, and we talk about it for a sec or two. We have quite a few people, and if everybody reads, you know, so we'll have to move probably at a little bit faster pace than always normal, but it's great. So the main elements that you're graded on in SNHU that I think are really helpful. I mean, I use them all the time when I'm working with my clients as well. So I believe in these elements. They're narrative arc, and that really is, you know, do you have that, like Freytag's pyramid, you know, inciting incident, rising action, climax, denouement, you know, do you have something that seems complete? Narrative point of view, which is, are you telling it in first person, third person, the ever elusive and difficult second person? Or do you have an omniscient narrator, which is also kind of difficult depending on how you approach it? The character development. So do we find your characters relatable? Are they meaningful? And even if we hate them, are we supposed to? And do we hate them in the right way? And how long have I left Trey sitting in the waiting room? Setting has two of them, description and sensory detail. Description is more like the physical setting that you're in, and sensory detail is, you know, taste, touch, sight, sound, and smell. And sight and sound are the ones that we're the most accustomed to using, but taste, touch, and smell are the ones that really can make a scene come alive for your people. So those, oh, and rhetorical devices, especially figurative language. I love metaphor, and I love metaphor and simile is a subset of metaphor, but that's the place, as you all have heard me say a million times, that you translate this vivid world that's inside your head to the reader who has no idea what's in there. And so when you find common ground by saying something is like this or something is this, that common ground opens up your world to your reader. And it's amazing. It's magic. It's my favorite. I had something I turned into my writing group yesterday, and they're like, maybe we don't need this. It was true. It was true. So that's mostly what's happening in English 529. And Trey, I'm sorry I left you in the waiting room so long. I just didn't see you there. I apologize.
No, it's all right.
Okay. Well, we're just going over what's happening in 529. And then in 532, you're going to be crafting a narrative piece that, I'm reading now from the actual language, that relies on the emergence of nostalgia through descriptive inclusion of at least 2 of the 5 senses in order to propel a character through his or her surroundings. And boy, for I don't know which class y'all are in, but if 532 people are listening to this, try to get in taste, touch, or smell. And taste is one of the toughest ones to get in there. So also think about using synesthesia, where you can say like something tastes cold or smells green or whatever, so that you're mixing up what belongs with each sense. That's a fun way to really bring a scene alive. And of course, 532 is all about place and setting. So, you know, how are we going to get vividly in there? And so you're being graded on concept, main elements, style, and of course, mechanics. So just be sure you're understanding what the assignment is. And this is propelling somebody through a scene with 2 senses and requires nostalgia. And someone, I think Maria, asked, do they need to be flash? Should they be?
Oh yeah,
flash?
that was me.
Yeah, because they are going to be so short. And the answer is they don't have to be. But what a great opportunity to practice flash if you want to.
Okay, yes.
Excuse me. So you could have a complete narrative arc if you wanted to, but it's also really difficult.
Yeah, I've never done it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I do, if y'all want me to do one of these sessions, in the future weekends where I give a little like presentation on flash fiction and nonfiction, I'm happy to do that because it will talk a little bit about, it just lets you think about it in compressed form. It's sort of the same concepts, but
Flash fiction is exceedingly hard.
it is exceedingly hard.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I do right now for my own writing because it's hard, but it also just helps me get my voice going. So I split my screen to do this and it is not behaving. Okay. How are we feeling so far? Excellent. I'm seeing thumbs up. Fantastic. For the first reading that's trying to just get our juices flowing, I'm going to go ahead and read this one myself, but I will put it in the chat so that you can follow along. And for those who have been here before, this is that beautiful poem by Denton Loving, who's somebody I went to the Bennington writing seminars with. And he writes Appalachian, I don't know which end he's on, poetry that is just really real. And he puts you right there in the moment with him. So we're going to take a look at this poem, and the prompt's going to have to do with planting trees. So I'm going to read this now. Excuse me. This is Foundation by Denton Loving, and it's from his poetry collection Tamp that was published by Mercer University Press this year. Foundation. Unable to stand in our hillside orchard, too weak to swing a mattock or to wrestle with dirt, my dad wants to plant peach trees. For him, I tear the earth open. Rocks bleed out from poor mountain soil, and I unwrap swaddled peach roots. Before I scrape the dirt back and tamp it down, I return the largest rock under the roots, a surrogate for what I fear. I bury it back, imagine the roots encircling the rock, enclosing it, building from its foundation, like the hard stone buried in the sweetest fruit. What do we think the poem is about? And those of you who know, go ahead and cheat and jump in if you want.
Burying his father.
Right, or anticipating burying his father, right? And what are the moments that stand out to you as something you wish you could do, or something that just is meaningful to you when you hear it or read it?
I really like the rocks bleed out from the poor mountain soil. That is just something to me I probably would never have thought of writing. I like that. The image is very vivid to me.
Yes, nice. So it's not even a sensory detail except for that it's so visual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great image. What else? What he is playing. I agree, Colleen. We do not use the word swaddled enough. I mean, and tell me, why is swaddled meaningful in the like subtext that Denton Loving is working with in this poem?
Because it evokes the image of you holding a baby, so that means he's precious. Well, at least that's what I would say.
Absolutely. Swaddled is like a baby. And who could, or a shroud, good point.
The shroud, I was thinking that too. The way they used to bury people.
Right.
In shrouds.
And in this scenario, who could be, like it's a father and son. So how could swaddled be doing, as I call it, double duty in this poem?
He anticipates putting his father in a shroud when the time comes. His father is too weak now to work. He's having to do it for him.
Right.
Yeah.
But what do the peach trees mean in this poem? I mean, why
From
why
death
does
to
his
life.
father want to plant peach trees when he can't? He's not even strong enough to do it.
Because they will outlast him.
Yeah. And who else is going to outlast him?
His son.
Yeah, absolutely.
He hopes, yes.
And so interestingly, you have this last stanza, enclosing it, building from its foundation, like the hard stone buried in the sweetest fruit. And in this moment, you have this amazing just amalgamation of all the things. His father's kind of like a stone. Peach fruit has a stone in it. And Denton Loving is the product of his father, right? But his father, if you read this whole collection, is a pretty traditional kind of mountainish man. And Denton is not. He's an English teacher. His lifestyle is something his dad probably didn't agree with. And he's this amazing guy, the sweetest fruit that came out of this upbringing. So there's a lot of autobiographical things happening all throughout this collection. And if you read poetry at all, I highly recommend this. It's so beautiful. And I only like poetry that's very accessible. I'm not a very good poetry person. And his entire collection just brings me to my knees. It's just incredible. So
Poetry is always subjective.
what'd you say? Sorry?
I said poetry is always subjective.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So it can mean whatever. Well, we've talked about this quite a bit in this group, but we talk about, my colleague at the Air Force Academy calls it contingent reality, where all the experiences we've had in our lives arrive at this moment with us to inform how we experience something we read, meaning that each of us have a different experience of reading this poem. And I think Randall and Jesse have an exceptionally different experience reading this poem, because they know these people and they know these trees and they know this soil, and right? And I was raised on the west side of Washington State. It's not the same here, but yet I bring my experiences of like who I've lost or eating peaches in, Turkey, whatever, right? So there's just a lot of personal experiences we bring that create meaning in the poem. And it's something to just have in the back of our minds anytime we're writing. We can't control a reader's response to what we write. We can just write the best of what we want to create. And maybe they'll get even more from it than we intended, which is the magic of being an author and writing, right? Okay, so I have a prompt about trees, and a few of you I think have seen this one before, but I'm not sure if I did exactly it. It's in the chat, and it's Canadian farmer Nelson Henderson. I can't believe I found the person who wrote this. Said the true meaning of life is to plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. And so, how can nature take on the lightness and the burden of our hopes and our fears? And this is, of course, literal or metaphorical, and write about it. In other words, do you have something, that you hope that you are sowing now that can happen in the future? Or, and this is important for those of you writing fiction, do your characters feel this way? So I don't expect you don't have to write autobiographically in this session. You can pick up your fiction characters and ask them, Jesse, this is like ready-made for your characters.
Heyo.
But do they have something that they're trying to have a legacy for? It's fun to think about our characters in our fiction or nonfiction, but especially in our fiction. They have goals and aspirations that we haven't even tapped into. It's like they're kind of these people that, sure, they're coming out of our imagination, but we don't even have half of us. It's like we have to discover them and find out who they are. Even though we're making them up, they are these people, right? And so not only does your protagonist really want to be on the page and have a life, if you don't publish, their only life is in your little world, but your minor characters don't realize they're not the main character in your writing. So just keep all that in mind as you're trying to write now about either your characters or yourself, or something that takes on this idea of nature taking our burdens, especially this idea that we can influence and extend beyond our own lives. Pretty complicated, I know. The number one thing when we go back to this is that you write. And if you don't write to the prompt, great, we don't care. We just want you to write. So if the prompt helps you write something, great. If you end up going in another direction, great. You have 6 minutes. On your marks, get set, write. Half a minute left. That's it. How did it go? Got some kind of nods, some shrugs. I muted you all just because it's always nice to keep things quiet while people are writing. So, except for Colleen, who's stuck without a mic. And everybody else, if you have something to say, be sure you unmute. Yeah, Maria, so it's nice not to have an editor voice in your head. Yeah, I do too. I think either allergies or something's going around. I don't know. But yeah, I have a sore throat as well. Anything that you want to say about like the prompt? Because I felt like once we got into it, it was a little hard. So any thoughts? Okay. Well,
I
Jesse.
did my best.
Thanks, Trey.
Yeah, mine went in a different direction. It did not, I write so much about nature and nature stuff, but this one did not exactly take that form. So I was
Interesting.
happily surprised. I mean, it did, but it didn't,
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Suzanne, good point. Thanks for saying that. These prompts are only supposed to get you started anyway. So playing with it more or seeing what direction it'll take you is a great idea. I did forget to say for Trey and for Colleen and for Maria, one of the things I encourage, but you absolutely do not have to do, but writing by hand is like scientifically proven to engage both sides of your hemispheres of your brain as opposed to writing on a keyboard. So for these short times, I do encourage you to write by hand if you want, because it can be really creative. Yeah, and then I find though anymore that just for the matter of time, I do all my composing for the most part on my keyboard, and it probably is hurting my memoirs. Yeah, it helps me memorize too, Trey. Yeah, there's a lot of memorization as a cadet at the Express Academy, and I wrote down a lot of bad poetry and facts that way. Okay, does anybody want to share what you got? And I encourage the old hats to jump in, so everybody can feel.
I'll go
Yeah,
first.
you look excited.
I just like to, do it.
It looks like Jesse will
right.
go first, and then I saw kind of energy from Elisa and Randall. Would you two like to go next? Okay, so Jesse,
Yeah.
Elisa, Randall, we're lined up. Oh, and then Trey will go after Randall. Awesome. I love it.
Hey. All right. Some of my handwriting, I do not think I can read, so I do apologize for the stops.
Just make it up as you go.
Okay. Yesterday, I realized I've become over-encumbered by the immense weight of my sadness. So, like all things I do not want, I decided to dispose of it straight into the burnables bag, not recyclables, because I do not want it to find me again in a shiny new form. I will not put it in a landfill either, because there it may fester and binge on the rot surrounding it, and it will grow. Eventually, it might come back like the monster in a Japanese B film to exact its revenge on the parent who abandoned it. And frankly, I do not want to deal with it. So then I will not want to deal with it either. So burnables it is. But when I take the bag to the burn pile, my sadness seeps from the singed holes and leaps back to me screaming, "Why do you forsake me?" That whisper I hate so much. It clings back into the grooves it buried in my shoulders in an embrace that drains me. So I run to the lake where I will drown it. I duck under the water for as long as my breath can hold, up and down, as many times as I must to abort this unwanted child. But I know, because I've tried before, that it will disperse into the water, and I will accidentally gulp in a mouthful, and then the sadness will grow in me again. Hey,
Wow. Okay, everybody, what stood out for you? What were, I mean, I was typing in things that stood out as I went. Yeah.
Yep, I was doing the same, but didn't hit enter. I loved the clings to the grooves in your back. And I love the whole, discussion of whether it's recyclable or not recyclable and whether it's going to come back or not. I thought that was fabulous.
thank you.
It really gave off this vibe of energy can't be created or destroyed, it can just be changed. And like you played with the nature aspect of it that way. And it you can't get rid of it. You try so hard, but it keeps coming back in other ways. And you just got to try to find the form that you can survive the best with. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm very curious about the grooves. Like, what do they indicate? Are they
Right.
scarves or yeah?
Oh, well, for my imagination of it is like my own depression always has me like haunching my shoulders. And so it's like this permanent like resting place for it.
Yeah,
Just sits
yeah.
right here,
Yeah, fair. I was picturing more like almost reptilian grooves,
Oh yeah. We
sci-fi-ish.
could play with that. That would work well with the monster idea too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, you could be the Japanese bee monster.
It's me.
Your sadness turns you into it. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'll come back one day as Godzilla. You'll see.
I love it. It's not nearly as hopeful as peach trees, but it's great. I really enjoyed hearing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Elisa, you ready?
Okay, yes, and I was following Kristen's amazing handwriting, so it's shorter than normal because I'm trying to write as neatly as
Good for
she
you.
is.
Yeah.
I sit watching the lake water coming in and out. Last week was Rosh Hashanah, a holiday I grew up loving and hating. During it, we go to the river and throw in a rock, symbolically casting away our sins, so we are written up in the book of life 10 days later on Yom Kippur. I've walked away from all that in the last 10, 20 years. Mumbo jumbo superstition I realized wasn't real the first time I disobeyed a command and lightning didn't strike me down on the spot or even later. But these last 2 years, I've had a heavy heart, not my sins, but others leaning on me, others who've made wrong turns, who've damaged their own futures, their siblings and their family. And I watch the lake 1 minute calm, one turbulent as a boat goes by, breaking the glass, sending wave wakes that grow and ebb, lapping against my shores. And I want to take my broken heart, hurling it with all the hurts and sins of others, casting it into the lake and having it be washed clean. But my mumbo jumbo knows that it won't cleanse my heart or repair the damage or fix other people's problems.
Really nice, Elisa.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was fun. I really like, even though you're discussing a lot about how religion does not affect you any longer, you do call on really heavy religious imagery that really works a lot. Like, yeah, I know you come from a Jewish background, correct?
Yeah.
I was still getting, because I guess because I come from like a Protestant background, I was getting almost the sacrificial Jesus image from you, the way that you're taking other people's sins, you know, and you're holding them for them. It was really, that's how I saw it, and I thought it was really nice.
All religions come from the same place.
Right.
There's a book called Something Peace by Massey that talks about it. Yeah.
Like, because there's a lot to be said for mental release from these ritualistic practices, and it seems as if your character that is probably yourself, but this character of yourself you portrayed on the page still wants that opportunity to go through the ritual, and if you shut down the mumbo jumbo, it can be helpful, right?
Yep.
Not that you believe that the sins are washed and will, be written in the book of life on Yom Kippur, but the fact that it just feels like for a moment you let them go off of you. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'd love to see what would happen if you took this character down and had them throw their heavy heart into the lake and what happened after that. Like, I think you could keep writing on this.
Okay.
And I jumped in on top of everybody else. Does anybody else have anything to add?
It did feel like the lake was kind of symbolic of the religious things, like the wave comes in, it's supposed to change something and then it's gone and nothing's different. And it comes again. And like with that steady repetition, it's like I'm mired in this tradition and nothing's changing and you want something to change. So I thought that was a nice sign.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, nicely done, Elisa. Let's move on to
Thank you.
Randall.
All right.
Wait, is
In the
it
what?
my turn?
No, it's Randall's turn. He's just getting
Oh.
it up on his screen. And then
Yep.
it's your turn.
In the late summer, entire flocks of seeds drift freely on the wind. They tour the countryside, taking in creeks and valleys like awestruck tourists. They linger here and there, but never for long. Their flitting natures compel them forward like a hook through the lip. Agitated, they leave the branch and cling to the air once more. One day, some will find a place, through choice or resignation, and put down roots. Yet some still linger. They drift invisibly in the night sky, unseen partners that dance with the fireflies, taking in sights that their rooted companions can't see. They jostle amongst one another on their random ways, some clinging to plummet to the ground in a passionate embrace. Others touch gently for only a moment and move on, forever changed by the contact. When we randomly touch in that sky of silent fireworks, is it to plummet, to fall to the ground for and with one another? Or is it just a moment, impacting one another forever before we drift away into the night?
Wow. All right. What do you think, everybody? What stood out to you? And everybody's welcome to type like this. It's just a great way to have a reaction, to what he's reading.
I love the flocks of seeds. Like the way you opened it with this idea of it almost being like a random for them. Well, because it is, but opening up with that randomness and that possibility of a lot of different outcomes was really great.
I love the fireworks in the sky. That for me was like my favorite sentence. It was like, makes you stop and look on the people that love and the people that hate and fireworks, and they're awesome, but eventually I'm jaded of 50 plus years of watching fireworks. They don't, bother me as much or do as much for me. So like that whole stopping and wowing, but also like, okay, here's another fireworks.
Contingent reality there. One of the
Yeah.
things that I admire is we go from flock of seeds to the dance with the fireflies to the fireworks, and we watch Randall take this from literal seeds to, an existential question of what happens with people in life. These seeds are, is it fate versus free will, and who digs in where? Because I know, Randall, you've moved from where you grew up, and so I feel like that's maybe a part of what you're getting into. And so it just seems like you were building an ever expanding possibility for what the imagery was doing figuratively. And that was a lot of fun for me. I just thought, wow, when we bump into each other, do we make an impact in the fireworks that is the beauty of this life, right? That's a pretty big thing to get to in 6 minutes. Yeah. Anybody want to add anything else? Just remember, these people are old hat at this. So we expect a lot of them. Trey, are you ready to read what you got?
Oh boy, yeah. How can I follow that? Nature was never clear to me. I walked through the forest, the chill wind sailing through the naked branches and trees like a scalpel, cutting at the flesh of my honor. But as I crunched my boot across dead leaves, I stopped and looked at them. I feared death, but death comes for us all. It's a constant in life. The only other thing was idiocy. These leaves did nothing, harmed no one, but they weakened and died all throughout autumn. The season represented the twilight of this year, and I felt I forced myself into the twilight of my life, wanting revenge. But my mentor told me something that I finally understood: with death comes rebirth. That's it.
I liked you reused the word twilight a few times there, right?
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked the way you wove it, that one word through everything.
Thank you.
The repetition was effective for you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
This was
Yeah.
I really liked it. You said you couldn't follow that, but I thought that was really good, especially like you created a very vivid image for me of like this stoic master, like almost like a samurai that was jaded at the end of his life, and it has the whole memento mori thing of like you're noticing death and everything, but you're comfortable with it because you've come to terms with it. That was cool. I liked it. You created a very vivid image.
That's exactly what I was going for. A
Well,
samurai
it worked.
memento mori.
It
You
worked.
did it.
You did. You know, I really like some of your choice in language here. You almost employed a lot of like almost violent language in the way that you describe things, like slicing through the trees and the way you like crunch on it and that there's just death all around you. So I think that also helped build up that air for the type of character who's walking through the woods, right? That even if you didn't say the thing about my master, I still would have had that samurai image because of the word choice. It was really good.
Maria mentioned the scalpel, and Colleen said she could see the sword. And that scalpel is part of what allows us to see the sword, even though a scalpel isn't a sword. And I agree with Jesse, your instinct.
It's a surgical weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. And so your instincts to use like violent verbs and the imagery that's like cold and harsh and unforgiving for this character, all of that, in 6 minutes was really nicely done to make this,
And I like
I'm kind of
proper
used
way.
to sprints.
I like the way you compared the idiocy to the other moments. And anytime anyone says the word idiocy, I always come up, my brain flies to the Idiocracy movie. And that really, that really clicked. It's like, do I stop and think and deal with all these issues, or am I gonna, water my lawn with Gatorade?
It's more like in that moment I said, what is expected other than death and taxes? Well, you can expect people to gradually get stupider. So yeah.
Yeah.
Rondo knows what plants will crave or whatever it was.
Yeah. Nice.
But thank you all for your kind
Thanks,
words.
Trey. Good start. Yeah. Okay, so I know I want to like check in. Linda, you got your mute off, so I know you could go. Colleen, you're kind of hosed unless you want to type it in the chat. Okay. And then Maria, I don't know about your throat. And Suzanne, I'm kind of counting on you will want to read at some point. Is that, yeah, okay, good. So we're Maria, with your throat, are you thinking about reading? Yeah, okay. So Suzanne, Maria,
Okay.
and Linda, who would like to go next?
I'll go.
Okay. So we'll do Linda,
hold on.
Maria, then wrap things up with Suzanne.
Okay.
Okay, mine's not as poetic.
That's okay.
Why did they plant cedar trees? So many people here suffer from allergies, but perhaps those early settlers did not know or care. Or were the trees already standing? Maybe this gated community of the dead exists because those trees, oh boy, I can't read my writing, had already offered refuge from the brutal Texas sky. That's I'm telling you, this is bad. Oh, this cemetery welcomed its first residents in the late 1800s. Perhaps they hoped instead that generations might find comfort and peace sitting beneath the canopy of leaves. We couldn't get a plot near the trees. That real estate is long settled, stones marking those who moved in first. Just as well, my brother suffered from allergies.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's awesome. I had no idea that cedars were particularly allergenic trees.
It's horrible. Anybody in Texas knows.
And are they
about
different than Washington cedars?
I don't know. I can only tell you what Texas is.
Huh. Because I've never had a response to a cedar tree. But I mean,
Oh.
I've never lived in Texas either. So
You haven't missed anything.
nor do I intend to.
Yes, like I said, we'd much rather live where you live. No, it's just we buried some people in that particular cemetery in the last couple of years, and it's this little old cemetery by the road. Texas has a lot of these little roadside cemeteries that were started over a century ago, and the cedar trees are probably the only thing that is noteworthy about this. But that's what I just thought about that.
That's so different than what we did with the poem. What did anybody else notice?
So I very much understand your thing. I lived in Japan and they also did heavy transplants of cedar trees there. So like the constant allergies, I felt so connected immediately to your story. I put my hand up for a second. So I was like, yes, the transplants are awful. And then you not really veered, but then the story transitioned into more of like the heart of what you're talking about here with the cemetery. And I thought that was a really pretty way to paint that picture. And the way you ended it was so good too. And I just had this like image of someone who goes to that cemetery and they get those allergies and they're blaming the fact that they're mourning someone on the allergies instead, right? Like I started in my brain filling out the people that go to that cemetery.
Yeah, a lot of eyes water. I was writing so fast. It kind of goes along with something I wrote for the last class I took. And anyway, but it's true. You can blame your eyes watering on the cedar.
Right. I felt like it would make a really full.
Actually, that's really good. I'm going to write that down. This is such a mess. I had everything going every which way. I was having a hard time figuring out what came next.
Oh, no. I thought it was really great as it was.
I like the way that even though these trees are causing allergies, so they're bad trees, as it were, they're still the prime real estate, or near them is the prime real estate. And the fact that your brother had allergies and couldn't get into the prime real estate. So it's like, it's almost like he wants to get in with the better crowd, but he can't. And that's kind of like, everything circles into the allergies are going to make you sneeze and cry. And, he can't get into the good area. So he's sneezing and crying and you're sneezing, it like all wrapped up together.
I know, but it's no longer something that bothers him.
Exactly.
But
why
it did bother him a lot, and he died of a respiratory illness. So, it was just something. It just, I don't know. It just came into my mind. Trees. I'm not really into nature, but reading about trees, that was the first thing I thought of. So
yeah, and it's that has that nice shift or surprise that an end of a flash would have, because of course somebody who's passed is not impacted by allergies.
Yeah.
But to think that is the way we think about people who have passed. And so it was really nice. Nicely done. Thank you, Linda. Okay, Maria, are you ready?
I also can't read my own writing, but
make it up as you go.
I'll try. Okay.
You're in good company.
Thanks. And I don't know where I was going with this. It was pretty automatic. So the tree reminded me that I was dead. I was forgotten and my time here wasn't of lasting consequence. I touched the tree and felt its bark, hard, scratchy, and broken, but still intact, still protecting the life beneath it, still waiting for its time to be shed and the young blood would take over and take my place. When I touched the bark and felt its life, I remembered the something of life and how my place in the bark was an important place. I am the tree bark. I am of consequence. There was peace being dead. There was satisfaction, satiation, bark protecting, young, aging, dying. I am now the bark enclosing the youth inside the trunk. I am important. I look up at the tree and see the sun piercing through the canopy like speckles of rainbow sprinkles on my daughter's birthday cake. Although the light is fading, setting beneath the horizon, that it brought ahead changed the forest, the energy that it brought changed the forest with life to keep it evergreen for another millennia, for another split second. That was it.
Nicely.
Very good.
That felt like a mantra, you know?
Yeah,
The bark is
Thank
a
you.
shield. Yeah. Excellent.
thanks. I've never shared anything first draft like that before in public.
It's very
It's one of
good.
the great
I know what
things
you
about
mean.
this, isn't it? Well done, you.
Thanks for this group. It's really fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
So I keep doing it.
It made me think of the dryads, you know, the beings that are half tree and their heart, the hearts of the trees, and they can step out of the tree for moments, but you know, they have to always come back to the tree for their life and sustenance.
Oh, wow. I never thought of
I'm
that.
into sci-fi,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
or
cool.
fantasy, but that's what it made me think of, like this this connection between a being and a tree, and you're really one and the same. You can't live without the tree, and the tree can't really live without you.
Yeah, I love how everyone has a subjective take on each other's work. They like brings new meaning to it that you don't realize yourself. Sorry.
And how much
Thank
is
you.
it an amazing hook when a first person narrator says that the tree reminds them of being dead, you know, like we know we're listening to a unique character, somebody who's not our traditional living person. So we're already being asked in the first line to like let go of the assumptions that we're going to make about what a character is. And then you take us for this kind of wild ride, which is awesome, you know, and we're willing to go there, especially when you start to just kind of like free form. We're there because we're like, you're dead. Bring
Yeah.
us. We haven't been there before. Take us
Yeah.
with you, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was really exciting. Klein says we often plant trees for the dead, and that's what I wrote about. So I thought that was a very cool way of portraying it. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
So almost as if this was from the perspective, like supposedly, I mean, if we're going to get really literal, which of course this isn't literal writing, it would be that they sprinkled the ashes on the tree that they planted for the dead, and she grew up into the tree. Like you could take it that literal, though that would knock some of the fun out of it, right?
I don't really know what it even means to me when it falls out like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to look back on it, and I'll read all the comments later too. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is definitely kind of what we are trying to do here, because you'll come away from this with something that you can pick apart. Do I want to take even one line from it and work on something, or do I have something whole that I can keep expanding, or do I have something that I can reduce and polish into a flash? I mean, could I make a poem out of what I wrote? Like, this is just us blurring on the page, blurting, and then, you know, it's your job to turn it into something usable or not, depending on what you get. Okay, Suzanne, let's wrap this up, and then we gotta fly into the next one. You're muted, but you're reading beautifully. I can tell.
Thank you. The river washed over me, my tears mixing to become an estuary. The glacier water numbed my heart, my limbs, my mind as it cradles me. I don't know this river, the twist that will take me either through calm water or the tumultuous rapids that threaten to send me to my room to think about what I've done. I let the sun shine, letting it nuzzle my forehead before it dances behind the clouds. I closed my eyes and I let the pine, cedar, and forgotten apples tickle my nose. The water takes me, and I let it.
That felt so whimsical.
Thanks.
Particularly the tickle my nose. I can just, this really tender moment where it's like, doot, 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 you know?
But that I don't know this river, and then the water takes me and I let it as an ending is just like so open to an experience. And I don't think we quite know the experience, but we maybe relish what this character's feeling. Somebody else go.
I love the way the river is like you're following the river, trying to figure out what you've done and if it's going to send you to your room. And it made me think of a child that knows they've done something wrong, but they're not quite sure what they've done and whether or not they're going to get caught and punished, or maybe they didn't actually even do what they think they've done, and they're going to be punished for something totally different. So the meandering river totally like woke all that up with me.
Anyone else?
Also got that feel, the same kind of random, like fate versus free will, and also the acceptance of it. You know, like it is what it is, and I'm just gonna go for the ride and see where it takes me.
And that's exactly what I was hitting. So perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's just keep driving forward, because in a perfect world, we will be done at 10:30. That's what I strive for. I seldom land that way, but it's, you know, goals are important. So y'all have, you know how much I admire, there's an author named Sarah Freeling, and many of us know this poem of hers called Wondrous, and that I'm going to put in the chat for us to read through. She's an amazing instructor as well. She used to teach at SNHU, actually. She doesn't anymore. Oh, are you taking the workshop, Suzanne? I was just going to recommend that you check out her website. There's not a ton of availability left in her workshops usually, but they're affordable. They're $110, which is ridiculously cheap, and they are more than worth every penny. I take her workshops regularly. I've signed up for one in November because I've done the ones before, and she's like, sometimes it's not helpful to do the ones before, and she's doing a new one. Anyway, so she is amazing. And I think I have, hold on. I'm gonna take it to my bed to read it. She has a new book out, but she's just incredible. So I highly recommend you check her out. I think her name is on here, so you'll be able to Google her name and find her. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this to get us going, and we'll talk about it. This poem is called Wondrous by Sarah Freeling. I'm driving home from school when the radio talk turns to E.B. White, his birthday, and I exit the here and now of the freeway at rush hour. Travel back into the past where my mother is reading to my sister and me the part about Charlotte laying her eggs and dying. And though this is the 5th time Charlotte has died, my mother is crying again, and we're laughing at her because we know nothing of loss and its sad math. How every subtraction is exponential, how each grief multiplies the one preceding it, how the author tried 17 times to record the words, "She died alone," without crying, 17 takes and a short walk during which he called himself ridiculous, a grown man crying for a spider he'd spun out of the silk thread of invention. Wondrous how those words would come back and make him cry, and yes, wondrous to hear my mother's voice 10 years after the day she died. The catch, the rasp, the gathering up before she could say to us, "I'm okay."
Wow.
Oh, makes me cry. I'm not crying, but it would make me cry. You see it show up a lot in social media during Mother's Day. Thoughts? There's so much to admire about this poem.
Yeah. So you say it comes up on Mother's Day, and particularly this part where she's recalling her mother's voice after she's passed. It keeps sending my brain back to this hymnal that's called "If I Could Hear My Mother Pray Again."
Oh,
If you weren't raised religious, you might not know. But it's very much that same thing about how much your mother's voice affects you, you know.
yeah, good point.
For me, I still have conversations in my head with my grandparents who died 20 years ago. And I hear their voices all the time. And this story, the fact that it took him 17 times to say the words really resonated with me, because there's so many times and things have happened and I'm just like, wait, are they dead? Are they not dead? You know, is my heart breaking? It's not. And it's really very, very powerful and strong.
She called himself ridiculous, a grown man crying for a spider he had spun out of the silk thread of invention. For me, that's almost the best line in the poem for craft and technique, where she's got the sibilance of spider spun silk happening, and that amazing double meaning where we talk about spinning tails, but he's got a spider and spiders spin webs, and he's invented her and he's made himself cry, right? And Maria, I should have looked at that. The language is spun together like a web as well. Yes. And that's exactly probably what triggered the thought, was my favorite line. Yeah. So I think that reading Sarah's work like this shows us the power in going back and then fine tuning your work to reach that meaning. You know, because she probably didn't have this exact line in her first draft of this. And then when it emerged, you know, you get this eureka moment. And that's when I, you know, give feedback to clients, to students, when I say, try to make things work for you. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm unbelievably, my brother hired me to edit his third book. And in it, his character dives to the floor like he's trying to catch a French fry from the 5-second rule. And I was like, oh, come on now. You know, you've got a retired military veteran who is, you know, athletic and climbs these 14ers. Like, you have this amazing character and he's just diving for a French fry who probably doesn't even eat French fries. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say, try to have all of this work that you do where you're trying to make meaning and double meaning and figurative language and metaphors and all this stuff work for you within sort of the thematic purpose of your writing, you know? So in this case, she's just writing about this amazing moment and she uses language spun together like a web, right? And she figures that out as she's, you know, writing on this moment that happened to her when she was driving home from school where she taught, right? And we even know that because it's 10 years prior, unless her mom died when she was a child, but you know, whatever. We won't go there. Okay, so we're going to do an easier prompt from this one. And it's not perfectly related to this poem. I'm just trying to have you write about whatever comes to mind from this phrase. And you can change the pronoun. It can be I, it can be she, it can be they, it can be we. You can do it however you want. But I want you to write about, I brought you here because, and take it forward either from you, from your character's point of view, wherever it'll end up taking you. All right, everybody, on your marks, get set, write. About a minute left. Stop. Come on back. How'd it go?
Unfinished. I wanted 10 more seconds to really wrap it up, but it's fine.
See you later, Linda. Sorry you have to go. Oh, you didn't hear the prompt, but I put it in the chat. Trey, so sorry. Oh, I feel so bad because I don't look after that. I'm so bad. I brought you here because was the prompt. But I hope you wrote something anyway. It just came to mind. All right, would anybody like to go?
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
Who jumps in? I don't care.
Go on, Randall.
Go,
Okay.
Randall.
I brought her here because she had nowhere else to go. Her village had been burned in the name of the church I had once served. I barely saved her from men I would have once called brother. What was meant as a protective gesture, planted in good faith, became a fierce protectiveness, fueled by my bitterness toward this world. The church had condemned the relationship that blossomed from that initial meeting, but I don't care anymore. I'll protect her from them, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because I love her. My powers grow stronger when I walk in the ways of the primal spirit that gave me birth. I feel his magic course through me each time I tell her it will be okay. Each time I turn their soldiers away when they come to claim her. I defy them and I defy their church. If I must, I will kill them. And if their God himself comes for her, then I'll kill him too.
Is this from The Thing, Randall?
It is.
Yeah. I love it. We've seen this character just a teeny bit before, and his conflict with the church is like so strong. And it comes off so strongly here. And I love how you say, like, if that God comes for her, guess what? I'll kill him too. You know, it's just so strong.
That's awesome.
I loved, it reminded me of, the concept of prima notte that actually is just fiction and never actually was real, but was on the books. But I loved the protectiveness, and I loved the contrast, with the church that he's walked away from, the fierceness of his protection, the love conquers all kind of message.
What else? Trey's asking if you said prima nota.
Yeah, but it's not actually real. It was fictionalized in a lot of things, but historically it wasn't real. But everyone saw Braveheart and thinks it's real.
I really loved the passion of your character. One, because I know your character a little bit, but like I believe he would absolutely kill anything that's literally anything or anyone or any entity that stood in his way of his loves.
That's the
Yeah, this is actually something I'm considering for my MFA thesis, and I've been sharing it with them. It's basically a knight who becomes polyamorous, and the church tells him you can't have this second woman, and he's like, "No, I'm. There's nothing you're going to do to take her away from me." So
that seems like it's got a lot of rich potential.
Does.
I think it's worth mentioning. I was going to wait till the end, but I want to be sure that Colleen and Maria and Trey know that these people hold between weekend things with prompts because they didn't think that every other weekend was enough. And so they're really getting to know each other, and I love it. I mean, I think it's really vitalized the writing community in this Slack group, and I just love you guys so much. And I just can't do it every weekend, because I have a life that resents me giving my time. And you all are doing the real writing stuff. I should just show up and write sometimes if I'm available, because my husband's gone for like 20 days right now. So
you should.
Please do.
It'd be so fun.
Yeah, I'll just come up and show up as one of you. Anyway, so I just want you all to watch for it in the Slack channels, because that's where you'll see them talking about inviting you in the Zoom, and it's a prompt you do ahead of time, right? Do I have that right? Yeah, and then you just come and read what you got, right?
Yeah.
So, the Slack group it comes and goes with its activity, Trey. Sometimes it's super robust, and sometimes everybody's head down just trying to get their work done for school. So, but I think it's a great place, and y'all are so supportive of each other that it's just fun. It's the whole reason I created it, because I felt like SNHU is lacking a little bit in that. And I think SNHU tries, but the thing they can't recreate is that you get to know each other a little bit. And that's what I think is working here. And what what you have in common, I guess, is having had a class with me, but that's not why you work, but it's like a place to start anyway. And certainly my hard over attitude on the kind of feedback we give people helps, because it's always an encouraging side.
So SNHU has its own like a writing groups that I by mistakenly joined, and then started getting emails where everybody's CC'd instead of BCC'd. So it's the reply to all of 1,200 people. But basically it's awful because everyone just posts their works and it's like critique me, but no one actually will bother responding to what you're saying. So it's like everyone throws their stuff out thinking everyone else is going to do the work for them, but no one's actually going to do it back.
I don't do TikTok because I'm too distracted. Yeah, so it's tough. And I mean, I guess one of the other potential tough things here is, you know, depending on how big we ever got, would we have some problems? I don't know, because so far I think the most we've had show up for a weekend is 10. So we'll see. Yeah. Well, okay, so I just wanted you to know there are these other possibilities, and you know, the goal of this whole thing also is if I were to ever disappear, that you all would still have each other. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if a screaming fiery crash happened, you know, you would have built community, which is what I'm really interested in. Okay, who wants to read next? Lisa, who I'm
And as a
always trying to
prelude,
follow Lisa.
just so that everybody knows, I'm sitting here staring at the lake. I'm waterfront, so that's why everything is always the lake.
Gorgeous.
It is. I brought you here because of the lake and the river and the way you say you are agnostic, but you aren't. You vow that you don't care, that it's all mumbo jumbo, but it's steeped in your blood and it runs through the veins. 10 years ago, my aunt took me to the mikveh, the ritual bath, where you're supposed to go monthly to cleanse yourself, but I've only been once. And it'll cleanse your soul, she said. So I went and I washed and I prepped and I dunked 3 times, breaking the water to say the prayers. And I burst out into jagging, sobbing screams. And I felt cleansed for an hour and a day and a week till the shit came back. And I want to believe, to cleanse my soul, to cast my sins, to dunk in holy baths. But it's all mumbo jumbo, I say. She brought me here to look at the lake, and instead I watch, and the water comes in and out, and I watch nature, and I watch real, and I calm for a minute until the shit comes again.
This feels very connected to your first piece.
I know,
Almost
that's
like
why I did
it
it.
could be woven into it, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like you have an essay on mumbo jumbo coming together.
You know, it's the high holidays. I'm in such conflict between not believing in any of it, and it's part of me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the yeshiva world leaves a really strong hold on you when you break out.
Yeah.
It's a subject that a lot of people explore, but you're exploring it uniquely. So I encourage you to keep going.
You know, I relate to what you're saying here, especially when you say you're agnostic, but you're not. A lot of my friends in my community have a really similar experience of leaving whatever they've done, but there's so many that still repeat some of these rituals, even though they don't really like believe in it, but it's just become so ingrained. Like I have friends who still sing hymnals, even though they're not into that anymore.
Yeah.
And that like feeling comes through very strongly here with that connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in some ways it's a cult, you know. It'll always, you know, I smoked for a very short time when I was in the army, and it's been 30 years since I touched a cigarette, and yet somehow there's always that like back of your head kind of pull. And I feel like, you know, leaving the yeshiva world has done the same thing. It's like I don't believe, but the back of my head there's something still there.
It's just so much a part of culture. It's the same thing. I'm in the Bible Belt, so I understand. It's like I literally went from, like, at one point I was a preacher and I'm an atheist now. So like I totally understand. Like even being an atheist, I still have those pulls. Like there's things in my terminology, the words that I use that are linked back to that. Like I'll say sacrificial lamb or something like that. It links back to it because your culture is just so pervasive. It becomes a part of who you are.
Right.
And I mean, even our larger culture takes on aspects of all these different like religious possibilities. And so I don't know how you would extract yourself completely from something like that. It'd be difficult.
And part of it, I think,
Definitely.
to me is also I'm going to Israel in a week for my niece's wedding, and it's like my husband's going through my wardrobe going, nope, nope.
Yeah, well, you're onto something, and you might want to, hang on to this and keep working on it through that trip, because I suspect you're going to get some really rich material while you're there as well. So
Yeah,
we're thinking about it anyway. Good job, Elisa.
thank you.
Who'd like to go next?
I'll do it.
Okay.
I brought you to the kitchen because I want to make chicken and dumplings. I looked at my mother with all the bewilderment she raised me to feel and blocked her from the stove. Yes, but you are sick, Mother. Go sit down. I opened the second kitchen drawer where all of our recipes are stored away. Church lady amalgamations with 10 banana pudding recipes, Southern living clippings, and that one Paula Deen book my parents bought on vacation in Gatlinburg. I fumbled through the glossy pages to find the single note card, edges that were singed brown with a stain of time, and a little chicken broth. It's Grandma's directive, the only acceptable way to prepare dumplings my home has ever known. She always cooked it for me when the sniffles robbed me of my voice, and the aches sentenced me to an excruciating day in bed. When I turned around, I see that my mother has already begun. Cold water, flour, lard from the cabinet. She's already molding her remedy on the kitchen counter. I threw my hands in the air, recognizing the stubborn set of her shoulders, and I go to boil the chicken. But then I stop, and I have to hold back the tears from seasoning the water. And that's where I stopped, but I wanted to keep going.
You probably should have just kept going.
I wanted to. I didn't want to be rude and be like, oh, But the point of it is that I felt really like, I don't know, I felt a sense of melancholy to see that my mom had to cook her own remedies because her mom had passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that she wouldn't let you cook the remedies is also
I know.
right? Like,
Right.
she can't trust you to get it right, or I don't know.
So, right.
If you scroll through the chat while everybody's talking, we loved so much of it.
Yay.
Other thoughts?
I'm
So,
excited for you to keep
Yes.
going with it.
Yeah.
Like that recipe list and how you like intertwine the narrative with the ingredients, so good.
Thank you.
I love the salty with the tears and the soup and everything. And the fact is we all have drawers, and I have a drawer in the kitchen of like knickknacks and stuff. My mother-in-law calls it the chazarai, and chazir is pig, and she's just like, that's like just your messy, like piggish everything drawer. And your drawer of recipes made me think of, for me, it's the drawer of crap that I had, but my grandparents had a drawer of candy where the candy that wasn't on the allowed list was hidden in the back.
Girl, we got that too,
Yes,
girl.
But so the drawer for me was like this imagery of packing away. So the drawer holds the memories, the memory of your grandmother, the memory of the recipes, the memories that you're making with your mother, and these note cards that are somehow going to go down the line to your kids as well. And it's just like this memory tucked into a drawer.
Mhm.
And that to me was like even more than the actual cooking.
Right.
what Suzanne said, I do think, you know, if you wanted to play with it, because it's pretty close to flash length, there's
Yeah.
a lot of fun to turn it into a hermit crab, where you
Okay.
allow it to be a recipe, but it tells the story. I mean, I think you're really close to doing that unconsciously anyway. So we're thinking about, what did your cat do, Suzanne?
Thankfully not my cat, but there was like a big bang onto the side of the house and that got me. It scared my cat too.
Oh dear.
There's a lot of books out there that intertwine cooking with
Life.
with
Yeah.
emotions. Like one of them is Sourdough by Robin something that I picked up for my son who likes to bake, thinking it was a book about sourdough, but it's not. It's about like sourdough taking over the world and this whole big thing. But like there's a whole like group of like these pseudo cookbooks.
Mhm.
I think Amy Tan has one as well.
Yeah, it's a complete genre.
But yeah. But I
Mhm.
think maybe look into that if you wanted to go further, because I can see this being the beginning of a novel, you know,
Right,
going down memory lane kind of thing.
for
Yeah.
sure. Pop it in the chat for me and I'll take note.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean,
Marie-
there's so many, like Under the Tuscan Sun has all the recipes at the back of the chapters, and the language of baklava and piecemeals, and I mean, there's just so many of those kinds of books that bring food in and do that.
Chocolat is another one. Chocolat by Joanne, I think it's Joanne Harris.
Yeah, and Voracious by Lift It Up, Cara Nicolette. Yeah. It's a whole thing. I used to teach food literature at the Air Force Academy. I wish that they would develop a food literature class at SNHU, but I know they won't. So, oh well. Maybe I should do one through Broach Park, a food class, like a
That'd
food
be
writing
fun.
class. Yeah. Kat would probably never agree to it. We could just run one anyway.
Yeah.
I'm happy to host one at the house. You bring the literature side. I've got a big kitchen.
Yeah.
We'll all come and we'll cook dinner.
Yeah,
or
it's probably
something.
only a 5-hour drive. I can do it.
There you go. Piece of cake.
Okay, I've talked too long. Who would like to read next? Poor
I can
Poor
go.
Maria. You can just see how sick you are. I'm sorry. Suzanne, are you ready?
I can go, yeah.
Yeah, great.
I brought you here because I heard your heart wail as last leaf fell to the ground, splattering on the wet earth. I brought you here because I watched as your face crumple, eyes squeezing together like fresh pressed apples before you add the cinnamon and sugar. I brought you here because you fell to your knees like the mountainside eroding with the tears you shed. I brought you here because you were starting to rest, but you just needed some shelter and a gentle hand to buff out those tough memories. I brought you here because your pot was too small, the soil had no nutrients, and the water ran dry. I brought you here so I could plant you out in the garden, nurture you, let you grow taller than a redwood tree. I brought you here because you deserve better.
I
I love it.
What do y'all think?
I love it. I love the way you're going to be potted and growing, and that you're lacking nutrients, and we'll give it you, and the you deserve better and the I deserve better from your previous one. You know, the recognition that we all deserve better than we're getting.
And the solid clue that it's figurative, because you're going to be taller than a redwood tree. You know, nothing's taller than a redwood tree except for what you're going to grow right here. This thing that you're figuratively growing. I love that. I know redwood's one word. I have typing problems.
Girl, I've been planting stuff all week, so you hit me.
Seriously? So you live somewhere where you can plant stuff and it's not gonna die? You're doing
Well,
like
we're hitting late season, so we
Yeah.
can do like mustard greens and stuff like
Yeah.
that, which I started a few weeks ago. But we're also planting a mini orchard. So the first piece, I was like, I just planted a bunch of peach trees this week. It was a lot of effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you say you lived again?
I live in Kentucky.
Okay.
The way you said that was so Kentuckian.
It
I
happens
live in
sometimes.
Kentucky.
Weird, right?
It happens.
Randall, is that a mic?
Yeah.
Ah, that's why you sound so good. Imagine if I actually was professional.
Yeah, I do video editing, so I
Yeah.
have to have a real mic.
Fair enough. So it's Suzanne, we love it.
Yeah.
That's something, make it into the words that you exactly want and consider sending it out.
Thank you.
Oh, I think I promised everybody a list of flash places, didn't I?
Now you did.
Yeah, I'll attach it here while you guys are talking. If I can find it. Because I'm not the most organized person in the world.
But
Hello?
yes, Suzanne, you did such a great job with this. Also, because the idea of nurturing something into a taller than a redwood tree is so much effort. Like helping a plant survive the transplanting process and getting your soil ready and getting everything together so that it can actually grow up real strong is tough. So like if you understand that process, then what you've written about also becomes a much stronger idea.
Yeah, it's a
And
huge-
it also shows a lot of foresight towards like what you want for this person.
Mhm.
Like it's not enough that you're going to save them, like you're going to make them prosper and you have this vision for their future. To me, that makes the redwoods really powerful because of that.
Yeah, the commitment is there, right? And I love, Jesse, I apologize for mishearing you for a second, but your accent made me hear soul instead of soul. No, but I love it because I
Yeah.
really think that the two things are intertwined
Yeah.
in here and you can play with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah,
thought.
soul. That's how everybody
Soul.
says it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
my husband, my God. There's so much oil
So much.
because he
and
works
you-
with vehicles a lot. There's just oil everywhere. I don't know what he's saying. I'm very Western Washington, very 5
Mhm.
o'clock news in my accent.
Right.
Yeah.
Fine.
It changes too much depending on where I am and how I'm thinking.
And you
And
don't sound nearly as British today as you typically do.
no,
Yeah. I was reminding myself while you were talking. I was like, oh wait, she is British, but she sure doesn't sound very much today. Yeah.
no, I mean, I will be in 2 weeks. Well, I won't be online, but I will be.
Yeah.
But it's
Right.
funny because I've been reading all this stuff and doing a lot of like thinking about where I'm going with classes, and I noticed everything I type has the extra U in it. And Suzanne noticed it in the
Yeah.
class. Like all of Suzanne's critiques to me were like, drop the extra U, and past tense is an ED, not a T at the end. And I'm just like, oh my God, gotta become American again for another couple of weeks. Switch back and forth.
Okay, so we've done Randall, we've done Elisa, we've done Jesse and Suzanne. Colleen is muted. Sorry, but she's gonna have it together by next time. And not that you're not together, but you're gonna figure out your mic. And so I think that leaves Maria, if you'd like to read. Do you want to read?
Sorry, what did you say, me?
Uh-huh. You're
Oh, okay,
we're-
sure.
Yeah,
My
that's
writing got even worse, the handwriting, but I'll try. Sorry,
with
where-
that.
where did I- thank you. I
Yeah,
lost it.
Colleen, if you want to put it in Slack, that'd be great. That's what Suzanne just said. Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of a mess. I brought you here because there are about 30 mirrors in this room and each image is distinct and you have to find the true copy of yourself. The other 29 images are fakes, and if you choose the the wrong mirror, the entire house of mirrors will shatter and the entire carnival will be annihilated, like the glass will shatter like shrapnel, raining upon the poor soldiers who were not protected in the muddy and disease-infested trenches. The Ferris wheel will stop spinning, the carousel horses will stop galloping in place circuitously. So choose the correct copy of yourself and choose the correct mirror. You are what pop culture calls an imposter. Are you even listening? Are you even here? Sorry, it was a bit of a mess.
Oh, it wasn't. I love
Yeah.
witnessing your brain work through these things.
Oh,
Mhm.
thanks.
Plus, my memoir is about imposter syndrome, so
Oh, wow.
you had me
Okay.
there, or it was. It might be shifting. I don't know. It could be.
The stream of consciousness, which is what I feel your writing is, both in this and the previous one, is really, really strong.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
Don't hold back. It comes out. There's lots
Okay.
of really good nuggets in there, like the idea that, you know, there's only one real true self, the rest are all fake in the mirrors. And I think you could go even further, and if you wanted to expand on it and write something about how there's one of them is the current you, but the others are your other options.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh!
I like that.
that
Yeah.
Right mirror can
like a-
change depending on
Yeah.
which fur is looking.
Yeah.
Nice.
I didn't even think about that. So
I think if you wanted to, because this has got really, and the previous one sounded like a poem, but this one sounds like it's got really good bones of being more.
okay.
If you wanted to work in it, just, you know, the mirror of the mirror of the mirror of the mirror, and at some stage, you know, take I would say less carnival, but more mirror, how everything is copies of
Oh, like
copies.
focus on that. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for the feedback. I don't know where this stuff comes from.
None of us do. Well, I know some, but none of us. Sometimes, you know, people have said to me, did you mean this, that, and the other? And I'm like, nope.
Well, thank you.
No, but like what Lisa is saying about the mirrors and all of these different versions of yourself that may have been true at some point.
Yeah.
It reminds me so much of masking and how people will, you know, you mask in order to hide a lot of times a mental illness or some aspect of yourself that other people won't vibe with. And so you do feel like you have very real versions of yourself that just aren't the same person until they're consolidated, right?
Yes.
So I was getting that feeling of it. And then it's like, well, which mask do you choose? And is there a real person underneath all of that happening? And yeah, sorry. But you know, I was very much getting that. And then the high stakes pressure, you know, I'm very reactive. And so my eyebrows just kept shooting up. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intense.
I'm not even getting half this stuff out of what I'm writing. So this is fantastic. Just the takes on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. What
There's
a
so many
really
directions it
encouraging
can
group.
go.
You guys are awesome. Sorry.
They are awesome.
Another aspect of that you could play with is that there is no correct mirror, because the mirrors are all reflections of you,
Mhm.
and the you that's actually perceiving the mirror is the real you. So there is no right mirror to
Oh,
choose.
yeah. There's no right choice.
Oh, and also maybe, I mean, as an extension of that, in some way, also no wrong choice.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
even though you're being threatened with that,
Mhm.
you know, maybe it's the power of the voice that's telling you that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Love that
Yeah.
angle.
This is
It's-
really cool.
It's
Yeah.
very ambiguous and literary. It'll make people
Right.
think that I try to make people think I'm smarter than I am by talking ambiguously.
Colleen says the stakes of that choice, right? I mean, it's a
Mhm.
big deal. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Amazing. And
Yeah, this has been so great.
I'm so impressed that, you know, you said you've never read this out in front of a group and you did so with such confidence.
Thanks. It's because of you guys. You're very warm and welcoming. And thanks for the tone you're setting, Dr. Max.
Oh yeah, well, I just love this group. The people who end up kind of staying are like you, like all of this.
Okay.
This is sort of the best version of ourselves, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fun. I'm ignoring the family on Saturday morning chores.
Well, I'm glad that it turned out to be a little bit worth it. So
Yes, more than worth it. Thank you.
we've done sort of the main part of it. I'm gonna hit stop record really quick.